very happy to have in our studio today Craig Littler, and Craig, an actor, and we're going to find out a little bit about you. But,
unfortunately, I am.
Unfortunately, and Craig, you and your wife are relatively recent residents here at Laguna Woods Village. How long have you been here?
Well, we moved in a year next month.
Okay.
So we're brand newbies here in the village.
And what are you finding to do here?
Well, everything. Tom, that's the reason we moved here.
Right.
There's everything to do. That's why my wife wanted to come here and forced me to. She didn't really. But when we came down and visited, we saw the clubs, and there was just so much to do. We're swing dancers, so we wanted to do that. There's a lot of dances, there's a lot of music, a lot of entertainment. We go to the theater here. Just so many, card clubs. We just played pool today. Wow. We play bocce ball. We go to the gym. I golf. I'm golfing tomorrow, so we're busy.
Village has to offer you.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your life and your career. You started out in Florida, I understand.
Well, I did. I actually was born in Syracuse, New York, and at about 12 years old, I moved to Vero Beach, Florida, where the Dodgers trained, and I lived there from 12 to 20. And I was a member of the theater guild there, and I did a couple of shows, and the director there was the regional auditioner for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. He said, I think you should go to New York and pursue a career. And Deborah Wally, who was Gidget Goes Hawaiian, grew up with me there, and she had gone to Hollywood and was doing Gidget. She wrote me and said, Craig, absolutely do it. So long story short, I ended up in New York City, 1961. Went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I graduated there, which is a formal drama school, the most formal school in the country and one in the world.
Wow.
Edward G. Robinson, Grace Kelly, graduated from there. So anyway, I went from there. When I graduated there in '63, I started doing summer stock theater and started doing a lot of musical comedy because I was a singer and I could dance and I was a musical talent. So I then in '66, I went from there to Hollywood.
Okay, how did you happen to make the Hollywood connection?
Well, we had just decided in about '66, a buddy of mine and I just decided, well, it was time. Theater was changing in New York, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity then. It was very cliquish, and we decided to make a run to Hollywood and try our luck in film and TV. And so we bummed our way out to Hollywood. We literally didn't have a car.
Wow.
So
no kidding.
We bummed our way out and got a little apartment in Hollywood by Hollywood and Vine, and I worked parking cars at the Brown Derby, and
that's a classic story. And then you weren't in Schwab's or anything that you got discovered, but how?
No, I wasn't. But I actually got discovered at a place called the Hollywood Center Theater. I was doing El Gallo in the Fantastics. I had done it for a year, and about the end of the run, a producer, Robert Fryer of Fryer, Karen Harris, big producers, he was doing Mame, the 20th Century. And he came and saw the show, and he was one of the original investors in New York. So he said, Craig, I think you're very talented. I think you can go a long way as a leading man, and I'm going to see to it that you do. I'm going to help. He took me to Joyce Selznick, head of talent, David O. Selznick's niece at Paramount. She put me under contract, so I was a contract player at Paramount, one of the last in Hollywood.
So an overnight success after all these years of preparation.
10 years. Right. And a lot of formal training, theater, fencing, and ballet, and singing, and voice, and speech, and
well, I noticed on IMDb that you've been in something like 3 dozen movies. What are some of the highlights of your career?
Oh, boy. I did a lot of Westerns, and I enjoyed that. I was a cowboy as a kid, and so I could ride and shoot, and I was very good on horses. And I could rear, and I could use a rope somewhat, and so I did quite a few Westerns, and Western commercials, and TV and movie. But I got to a point where I knew Cleavon Little, who was starring in this movie called Black Bart. And it was at Warner Brothers, and Mel Brooks was directing it, and he calls me and says, Craig, Mel wants this Gary Cooper type actor to do this scene with Madeline Kahn in this movie called Black Bart. And I said, oh, okay. So I went to Warner Brothers, and Mel Brooks finishes the scene with Harvey Korman. You saw it in the film with that beautiful redhead girl. And he comes out, and Cleavon says, Mel, this is Craig Littler, the guy I told you about, did a lot of Westerns. He's a good actor. And Mel looks at me and, good to meet you, Craig. You look perfect. Go to wardrobe.
Oh,
that was
wow.
my audition for which turned out to be Blazing Saddles.
Oh, no
right?
kidding. Yes,
And,
famous.
Well, little did we know it was going to be absolutely one of the 5 funniest movies, according to the records, ever made. He's got 3 of the 5, I think, Young Frankenstein and that. So I ended up in this iconic film, a small part, but it was a wonderful experience. And working with Madeline and with Harvey Korman and with him, and just in that brief time I was there, a few days really, it was quite an experience. And I was still pretty young, you know. So
I remember that something that seemed very insignificant at the time, having to do with mustard, became well known. Tell us about that.
Grey Poupon. Pardon me. Would you have any Grey Poupon?
And you are the man who said that in the commercial that got played 100 million times.
I created it. I originated that. And as I told you, Tom, the joke is that when I did it, when I auditioned for it, nobody knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. I never heard of it. It was not in the stores. So I did do that. I auditioned for it. I got it. And when I did it, it was still not in the stores. And then finally it came out. By the time it stopped running 13 years later, I had made quite a bit of money, and it was selling 30, 40 million bottles of mustard a year. So it was pretty
of all of the great lines that you've said in your whole career, none is remembered by more people than that one.
Well, that's true. That's true, because Johnny Carson did jokes on it, and like I said to you earlier, the New York Times, LA Times did cartoons on it. They did it in movies. And you know that rap today and hip-hop, which is not our favorite music, has more references to Grey Poupon than any other line in like history.
Is that right?
All over it. I looked at it online and went, my God, you got to be kidding me.
And you started all that.
I know. I started it. And of course, after I did one, they did several of them. And one with the old guys in the train where they dropped the mustard, and they started playing with it. But ours was the simple, clean, pure one that sold
the 2 Rolls Royces.
2 Rolls Royces, pulls up, pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon? But of course, boom, music, him in there eating, that's it.
Wow.
Simple. And they made a fortune for them. And so that was quite popular. But I did 320 commercials, a little over. So a lot of them, most of them national, and very big ones. A lot of them won Clio's, which is the Academy Award of commercials, as you know. So I mean, a lot of Chanel No. 5 and Tony the Tiger, Sugar Frosted Flakes, and Ford and Dodge and Chrysler, and I did all of them. And at one point was probably the biggest working commercial actor in all of the business, New York and Hollywood.
So you've done things that are more famous, but probably not many things that are more lucrative than doing commercials.
That's correct. It's absolutely correct. Unless you're starring, as you probably know, in a film, or you're starring in a series and it's ongoing, you're not going to make that much money the first couple of years as an unknown. You're not even going to do that well. Now, once you you write the contract, you could. But commercially, if you do a national commercial and that thing starts running, even then you could make $10, $20, $30, $40, $100,000.
Wow.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there working for a day and drawing residuals. And you're going to the mailbox. I mean, it was like, I used to get $10, $20, $15, $20,000 checks. And I was like, whoa. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. And so it really is the most lucrative, I think, part for the yeoman actor, not for the, obviously, for a big
top
star.
stars make millions. But
well, right. If you're a celebrity, which I was not, you can obviously make big dollars. But if you're just in a series that happens to be popular, you can do very well. But if it only runs for 2 years, you can actually make more doing commercials through that period than you probably would in that.
I'm sure in your career you've had lots of interesting things, but you hinted when we were conversing earlier about an event involving a former president and Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us the story?
Well, I was at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and they came to the Academy and asked for some people to host a birthday party at the Waldorf Astoria. And I went, okay, one of about 8 of us, put us in red tuxedo tops. We show up at the Waldorf Astoria. All of a sudden we look out and the streets are all cordoned off. And it's like, whoa, well, they come to, all of a sudden there's Secret Service there. Turns out that it's John F. Kennedy's birthday party. And there's Marilyn Monroe and Ed Sullivan, Danny Thomas, and Margaret, and all these big stars there to perform. And it was just like overwhelming. Whoa. And in he comes with Peter Salinger and Bobby Kennedy. And in the entrance of the Waldorf, there's a seating around, and right above you is not much higher than the ceiling. He was sitting not 20 feet from me.
Wow.
And he's watching them sing. And at the end of the show, before I get to, I'm sitting there hosting, seating people. And right to my left here is this nice old lady, reminded me of my mother. Really sweet. And we're talking. She said, what are you doing next? Well, I'm an actor, and I want to be an actor, and I'm at the American Academy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, so why are you here? And she said, well, my husband's in entertainment. I went, oh, really? And she said, I said, well, who's your husband? She went, Ed Sullivan. And I went, It was like, whoa. And here I'm this kid. I'm a 22-year-old kid going, oh, my gosh, you've got to be kidding.
Can you introduce me?
He's emceeing this.
Yeah.
So, and she was just the sweetest lady. So in comes Kennedy and the whole group, and not Jackie, because Marilyn was singing, and of course they were having an affair at that point. Everyone knew it, so Jackie wasn't anywhere to be found. And so everyone performed, and then Marilyn came out, and the pin spot came on, and she had that tight black sheet on, and she sang, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. And I'm standing not 25 feet away from her, like this. And I'm doing this, and I'm looking up at John Kennedy's got the cigar in his mouth, and he's just chewing on that cigar. And it was just like my heart was racing. I'm going, I can't believe I'm sitting here watching this. Wow. And of course I didn't know then that it would be, what would happen to Kennedy and this whole thing, what would happen in history. But it was just an amazing event. It was really, really, I thought I was very fortunate to have been, he was standing next to me, literally closer than you and I are.
Wow.
Marilyn's right here.
Wow.
And he's looking at her, and she's looking at him, and he's smiling, and she's going, Mr. President, I'm Mr. And I'm standing right next to them. I mean, I can shake his hand. And it was just amazing.
And that was an iconic moment that I think probably was seen by almost everybody on Earth eventually. So
8 months later, he was dead. Yeah. So for me,
wow.
When that happened, and I saw it on TV, it was just like, I went, oh my, that whole thing flashed in my, and now I was part of that history, which for me is, my family was a big moment.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, Craig, thank you for sharing. I'm sure you have more stories. We'll get you back sometime and hear some more. But
I hope so.
This is great.
Thanks
great. So much for coming in. Our guest now is Bill Hamburger, and Bill, we're delighted to have you in studio because you're an active member of our video club, and you're often on the other side of the camera.
Yeah.
And your career was to a large extent in broadcasting and voice work and that sort of thing. But we're here mostly today to talk about your other career as a drummer.
Yes.
And we're going to be learning a little bit about how the Woods combo came into being, and you are the drummer for that group. So
I love playing with the Woods combo.
Well, let's you started this journey on the East Coast, I think.
Drumming journey, yeah. I started my drumming journey in Wellesley, Massachusetts at the age of 8.
Okay.
And just kept up with it. My parents were musicians. And
You had very patient parents to buy their kids a drum set.
Yes. Well, I first started to play piano because that was my dad's instrument.
I
So
see.
then I went on to, I like drums better, so I started playing drums. And yeah, they were very patient. It was,
Okay.
being from musicians, from a family of musicians. But I just kept up with it. I never stopped. I mean, in high school, instead of playing sports, I played in the band. It was a great way to get girls. And just continued playing my entire life. And,
Okay.
and still enjoy it to this day. As I say to my wife, is I'm not going to stop until I physically can't do it anymore.
Until to support your habit of playing drum, you had to get a job, and
Yes.
you chose to work in the broadcast industry. How'd you get into that?
My dad worked for RCA, which was the Radio Corporation of America.
Yes.
And he would always bring gadgets home. I remember him bringing home the first cassette. The first cassette was like this big.
Right.
So I used to do radio shows, mock radio shows on this big cassette. And my brothers also went into broadcasting. And it really, the decision to go into that job is when I got out of high school, I wanted to become a drummer. My dad said, no, go out on the road and see what it's like, because that's what it's like to be a musician. And I did that for a while. I said, okay, this is not for me.
You got tired of
I got
starving,
tired of it. Yeah. So I went to college and got into college radio station and just went from there. And as you know, in broadcasting, you get jobs, you lose jobs, you get jobs, you lose jobs, you move around. That's
So,
pretty much
what
it was.
kinds of communities did you work in radio?
Radio at first was small markets in New Jersey, then up to Elmira, New York,
Right.
where I worked in both television and radio. It was a complex of both the television and radio stations. And from there, went back to some bigger stations in New Jersey and eventually into New York City. But then I also had a stint in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas, where I ran a radio station there. And then finally we moved back to New Jersey, and in 2005 I stopped broadcasting altogether and just went into voice work.
So voice work means what?
At the time, it was just a lot of commercials. You know, you did a lot of commercials for the client, and they say, hey, could you do my commercials for other radio stations? Started that way, got an agent. Then I found myself working for some game producers, which I did a lot of animated voices. They would put a cartoon character in front of me and say, can you come up with this voice?
And so you would invent the voice to fit the character.
Right.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, they'd give me some background on the character, some backstory, and come up with something. And
People don't realize what a big industry the video game industry is.
it's huge.
Yeah,
It's-
bigger than the film industry, some say.
That I don't know. I don't know, but I know when I was in the New York, New Jersey area, I was picking up a lot of work with different producers. Matter of fact, there's some producers I still work with today. And I moved to Texas and started to get involved in some of that. And in Austin, the market was so young. The directors were, 20 years old, so they were hiring 20-year-old talent, which I'm not.
And of course, they're making these video games for people even younger than that. So,
Right.
yeah.
So, but
So did you have some acting experience or lessons, or how did you
Acting-
learn to make these voices?
well, just as a kid, I did silly voices. Everybody, but everybody can do those. It was through some acting classes that I actually started to really hone in on, okay, what it really takes to make these voices, like, the backstory of a character. How does this character feel about such and such?
Had to get the right emotional tone to it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even in doing commercials, you think about the spokesperson for that commercial. What's their backstory? Talking to you about what soap you want. Acting like that, as opposed to just reading words.
Interesting. Now let's switch back to the drum side. And how did you happen to come to Laguna Woods Village, and how did you get involved in drumming here?
We used to vacation here starting in 2015. And our second summer back in 2016, I met Dutch. Well, we had a jam session somewhere in the
Tell us who
village.
Dutch is. And
Dutch is the bass player in the Woods combo. And I met him.
Dutch Visser.
Yeah, Dutch Visser. And he said, if you move back here, if you come back here, let me know.
Okay.
And we were living in Austin, and we put our house on the market, and I got an email from Dutch, "Are you here yet?" So as soon as I got here, I got in touch with Dutch.
Okay.
And we started. We were playing in a rock band, and I had mentioned to him, he says, "I played in a jazz trio in Austin. Is there anything like that here?" And he said, "No." So that's where we started to kind of put the combo together. It originally was a trio, and we did some performances in Clubhouse too. Were very well received. And at one of those performances, our singer with us, who's now Moki Lund, was just a guest singer, and she came up and appealed to everybody, and we just said,
"Oh my,
would you like to come play with us full time?" And then she did. She's been playing with us full time.
So, and you're a pianist in the trio, now the combo is Mark.
Is Mark Huckberg.
Huckberg.
Yeah.
And an amazing talent that most of us have seen him playing the piano all over the place. But
when we're learning music, Mark doesn't use music. Just tell him what the song is. He'll find it, any key. He has perfect pitch.
Wow.
And he's an amazing talent. They're all amazing talents. I feel very fortunate to be able to play with these guys.
And I feel very fortunate to get to dance with you guys sometimes.
Yes, you do.
When you're playing, and I enjoy that very, very.
I think that's how we met. You came to one of our first performances.
I think so, yeah.
We were dancing. Hey, I like this.
I like this, yeah. Well, let's not do the DJ trick and talk it to death before we play some of it. So tell us what we're going to be hearing.
This is an actual cut that we did here with the video club, and it's The Nearness of You with Moki singing lead.
It's not the pale moon that excites me, that thrills and delights me. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you. Isn't your sweet conversation that brings this sensation? Oh no, it's just the nearness of you. When you're in my arms and I hold you so close to me, all my wildest dreams, they all come true. I need no soft lights to enchant me. If you'd only grant me the right to hold you ever so tight and to feel in the night the nearness of you. When you're in my arms and I hold you so close to me, all my
pretty good.
She's pretty good. We were all pretty good, and,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of fun. And,
Yeah.
we had a lot of fun taping that. Shall we let the audience in on the secret of where we taped it?
Well, we taped it in a little box with a big green screen behind us. We're not actually on a stage.
So it looks like we're in a loft in New York or something like
Right,
that, but
yeah.
we're actually in the studio with a green screen behind us.
Green
And
screen.
all of
and
that,
lights.
all of that background is inserted electronically.
Much like all the news or the news channels and even the weather channel. I mean, it's all green screen. The stuff is not really there.
Tell us about what's coming up for the Woods Combo.
Woods Combo performs at the end of the last Wednesday of each month, all during 2018, in Clubhouse 1.
Okay, Liz.
And that's going to be every month. And we are working with getting an agent and working a little bit more outside of the village itself. But though we really like working in the village here, because as a band, when you're done by 9 o'clock, that's great. It's great. We pack up, we're home by 10.
Wow, yes.
But if we go
And you're
outside
home,
the
and you're
village-
only 2 blocks from home to start with. So
Right. You leave the village, it's not going to be that way.
Right.
You'll get home at midnight, 1
Right.
o'clock. So
Yeah.
we really enjoy it.
Well, we're very fortunate here to have a jazz combo of this quality and danceability right here among us in Laguna Woods Village. I appreciate your work,
Sure.
and thanks for coming in and talking to us.
More to come. Thanks for inviting me.